una buena idea. That's a good idea. Let's try that together. Es una buena idea. That's a good idea. Excellent. Now this story, before I learned this story, I used to think ants were humongous. But because of this story, I realized that ants are teeny tiny little things. Because this story is called Hormiguita, the little ant. Now, Hormiguita, she loved her abuela, her grandmother, more than anything in the world. What does abuela mean? Grandmother. How do you say it in Spanish? Abuela. That's right. Well, because she loved her grandmother so much, she decided that one day she was going to bake a loaf of bread for her abuela, her grandmother, and she was going to take it over to her. So she got the best ingredients that she could. She mixed up that dough, she let it rise, she put it in the oven, and it baked to a golden brown, and it smelled delicious. That's right. The next day came. Now it was springtime. The snow had mostly melted, but it was still chilly cold. So she put on her hat, she put on her scarf, she put on her pair of mittens. Pair of mittens? How many are there in a pair? Two, that's right. And how many legs does an ant have? Six, that's right. So the little ant, she thought to herself, oh well, I'll just forget about the mittens. And she went on her way. Now you may think that a little ant like Hormiguita would walk all dainty like do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. But no! This ant walked like this. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Just like that. Let's try that together. Here we go. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Now, Hormiguita, she was walking along the road in that way when she came to something that was shiny on the ground. Now, it wasn't a diamond, and it wasn't a jewel, and it wasn't gold, and it wasn't a coin, a piece of money, and it wasn't the light from a cell phone.
Was it the sun?
It was water. Well, it was kind of like water, but didn't act like water because it was frozen water. It was ice. And Hormiguita, she slipped on that ice, whee! And she landed on the ground, and her bread flew out of her hand and landed a ways from her. And Hormiguita, she sat on the ground. As she was there crying and rubbing her foot, which she heard in the fall, El Grillo came along, the cricket. The cricket is a little cool black insect that rubs its wings together and makes some cool sound that I bet you heard in the summertime and you probably didn't know it was a cricket. That's right. So El Grillo came along. Señorita Hormiguita, what is the problem? Why are you crying? Senor Grillo, I was walking down the road and I slipped on that piece of ice. I was trying to bring the bread to mi abuela, but I slipped on that ice and I hurt my foot and I made my bread dirty to bring to mi abuela. It's not fair. Señorita Hormiguita, why don't you go talk to La Sketcher, the frost? It is because of her that water turned to ice. Why don't you go talk to La Sketcher? Here's our part. Here we go. Es una buena idea. That's a good idea. I'll do just that. And so she went on her way to speak to La Sketcher, the frost. And here she goes, because you know what she sounded like, right? Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Senora Sketcher, Miss Frost, you should not have turned that water into ice, but because you did, I slipped on it, and I hurt my foot, and I made my and to turn the water into ice. If you want to go talk to somebody, go talk to El Sol, the sun. Es una buena idea. That's a good idea. I'll do just that. And so she went on her way to speak to El Sol, the sun. Here we go. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Senor Sol, you have not been doing your job. You were supposed to send your sun rays down to earth and melt the frost, but because you do not, I slipped on this piece of ice and I hurt my and I made my bread dirty to bring to me. Abuela, it's not fair. Señorita Hormiguita, it is not my fault. You see, La Nube, the cloud, came and parked itself right in front of me, and so I could not send my rays down to earth. But if you want to complain to somebody, go complain to La Nube, the cloud. Es una buena idea. That's a good idea. I'll do just that. And so she went on her way to speak to La Nube, the cloud. Here we go. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. You should not have blocked the sun's rays from getting down to earth, but because you did, the sun could not melt the frost, and because of that, I slipped on this piece of ice, and I hurt my and I made my bread dirty to bring to me. Abuela, it's not fair. Señorita Hormiguita, it is not my fault. You see, el viento, the wind, was supposed to push me away, but it did not. And so I had no choice but to stay parked in front of the sun. If you want to go talk to somebody about this, go talk to el viento, the wind. Es una buena idea. That's a good idea. I'll do just that. And so she went on her way to speak to el viento, the wind. Here we go. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Senor Viento, you have not been doing your job. You were supposed to push the cloud away from the sun, but because you did not do that, the sun's rays could not get down to earth and melt the frost. And because of that, I slipped on this piece of ice, and I hurt my foot, and it made my bread dirty to bring to me. Abuela, it's not fair. Señorita Hormiguita, it is not my fault. You see, la pared, the wall, was in my way, and I could not get through. The wall was not supposed to be there, but it was. And so if you want to go complain to somebody, go complain to la pared, the wall.
Is it a girl or a boy?
Es una buena idea. That's a good idea. I'll do just that. And so, Lord Hormiguita went on her way to speak to la pared, the wall. Here we go. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Senora Pared, you should not have blocked the wind from getting through, but because you did, the wind could not push the cloud away from the sun, and because of that, the sun's rays could not get down to earth and melt the frost, and because of that, I slipped on this piece of ice, and I hurt my foot, and it made my bread dirty to bring to me. Abuela, it's not fair.
Señorita Hormiguita, it is not my fault. You see, el comije, the termites, they were supposed to eat me. I am made of wood. They love wood. I understand I am quite delicious, but for some reason, they started to eat me, and then they left. So, if you want to complain to somebody, go complain to El Comijén, the termites.
Es una buena idea. That's a good idea. I'll do just that. And so she went on her way to speak to El Comijén, the termites. Here we go. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. You and I, we may look a lot alike, but I can tell you one thing where we are very different. I can tell you that because when I start something, when I start a project, when I start a job, I finish it. But you started that job. You started to eat that wall over there, but you did not finish it. You did not finish it, and that is how we are different. Oh, really? Oh, really? Well, it is true. We look a lot alike, but I think we are more alike than you think. Because let me tell you my story. We were eating that wall. It was really quite delicious, I must say. But El Oso Hormiguita came along, the ant eater. And so we ran as fast as we could, and I think that you would have done the same thing. That's what I think. Yes, it is. But if you want to go complain to somebody, you can go complain to El Oso Hormiguita, the ant eater. Es una buena idea. That's a good idea. I'll do just that. And so she went on her way to speak with El Oso Hormiguita, the ant eater. Here we go. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. El Oso Hormiguita, the ant eater. I think that no, es una buena idea. This is not a good idea. And so she went as fast as she could. All the way back to where she first slipped on that piece of ice. And when she got back there, you know, something really interesting happened. Because all of a sudden she realized her foot really didn't hurt her that much. And she went over to get the piece of bread that the loaf of bread that she had made for her abuela, her grandmother. And she saw that it really wasn't that dirty after all. And she wrapped it up nicely in that cloth that she had brought it in, and she tucked it under her arm, and she went to her abuela's house. And they sat at her house, and they had hot chocolate and bread and butter, and I will tell you, my friends, that it was delicious. And that is my story of Hormiguita, the little ant. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum.